All right, welcome everyone. This is the February 3rd meeting of the Scio Township Environmental Sustainability Task Force. And this evening we have a very full agenda. We are going to start with the adoption of that agenda. Is there any discussion about adding or revising the agenda at all? Okay, may I get a motion to approve the agenda as posted? Moved by Jeff, support.
I'll second it.
Support by Dana. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, on we go. We have not had any official communications or correspondence. And we're going to, with that, do we have, Kyle, do we have the full C's team here?
Yeah, I think everybody that can make it is here.
All right, wonderful. So this evening, we have an awesome team that has chosen to work with us. And Kyle Dwyer is our kind of key contact person. And so I'll hand it over to you. I thought it would be great if they introduce themselves. They're going to participate in the entire meeting this evening. And as a part of that, and when we get down to the report out from the different working groups, I'm going to ask each of the working groups to go over kind of their core goals kind of rapidly, and then we'll do kind of a deep dive into a couple of them depending on time. So this affords the opportunity for the C's team to kind of find out what the working groups are up to. And then based on availability, I'm going to ask all the working groups to say our next meeting is X, and hopefully the students will find one that works with their schedule and their interest, and also kind of join in some of the working group sessions, because I think they have a lot to offer. They have a great background, and we look forward to working with them. So Kyle, why don't you go ahead and kick it off? And we're kind of doing rapid introductions. So hopefully as we work together, we're going to be working with them through 23, through April of 2023. So it'll be a nice long-term relationship.
Kyle, as you get started, Kyle, I think it'd be really helpful for the group to understand this master's project, because your role with us really sits in the context of that master's project, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, in terms of our project, there's a lot of things on the school side that we'll be taking care of, but most importantly with you guys, we just want to get involved kind of as much as we can, within the limit of our credits and everything, obviously, but really ideally like to get involved with, the whole planning process, get involved with the work groups, and just we're really excited to finally see all of you, hear a little about those work groups, and see, how we could get involved with all of it. But just for quick introductions, I guess, I'm Kyle. I graduated last year from the University of Connecticut. I'm from Connecticut. My background's in biology and anthropology. And then here at Michigan at C's, I'm studying environmental policy and planning. And yeah, that's it. If anybody else wants to introduce themselves, go ahead.
Yeah, I'll go next. I'm Whitney. I went to Howard University in Washington, D.C. So I have a background in biology and then a master's in ecology and evolutionary biology. Currently in C's, I'm also in the environmental policy and planning program. And I'm kind of mostly interested in social equity and bridging the gap and disparities of the disadvantaged communities here in Scio Township.
Okay, I can go next. My name is Zoe. I'm also a student at Scio, studying environmental justice. My background is in biology. I got my undergraduate degree at Miami University in Ohio. And yeah, my interests are similar to Whitney's. I'm really interested in climate resilience and equity at the community level. And yeah, I'm really excited to be here and meet all of you.
Hi there, I can go last. I'm Alicia. I go by she, her pronouns. I'm also a graduate student at the University of Michigan. Like Zoe, I'm focusing on environmental justice and really have an interest in community resilience, both to climate change as well as other environmental risk factors. I graduated from the University of California in San Diego and worked for a number of years in the nonprofit sector, providing direct services to underserved populations. And my experience is mostly in program development and implementation, as well as community outreach. I'll also take a moment to introduce our teammate Anna, who wasn't able to be here. She will be participating in the work groups, just wasn't able to come tonight. Anna is focusing her studies on behavior, education, and communication. Her background's in working at the local level, partnering with government agencies, as well as community groups to push for activism and initiatives focusing on waste reduction, as well as sustainable farming initiatives. And then she also has a background in community engagement, as well as graphic design. And that's the 5 of us, and we're so happy to join you. I'll pass it back off to Jan now.
And don't we have an awesome team? You want to talk briefly about the faculty advisor too, because I think they play an important role. Maybe Kyle?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I mean, Ray is kind of, so far he's been a go-between between us. On our end, you know, we're meeting with him pretty regularly, usually once a week, depending on once the project gets going, maybe a little less, a little more, depending on what we're doing. But basically on our end, we're just using him as a resource because he is a really great resource on giving us information on how to go through this grad project process, but also, you know, resources that could apply to helping out with these working groups and helping out with, you know, community or climate action plans, and just, you know, getting familiar with all of this, because for a lot of us, this is probably pretty new.
Great, thank you. So we're incredibly fortunate to have a team. I've worked with several teams through the 2030 district, and you know, they do great work. And the focus of this particular team is going to be on the community engagement and education portion of our climate action plan. So with that, I think we're going to go ahead and we'll move on to Charlie. Would you like to introduce our guest speaker this evening? You're muted.
There, that does make a difference, doesn't it? Okay, thank you, Jan. So I'm honored to introduce all of you to Brian Weinert. Brian has been in the recycling solid waste field since 1984, with a career that has included 20 years with the city of Ann Arbor as resource recovery manager and solid waste coordinator, and 13 years with Recycle Ann Arbor, now serving as director of strategy. He has chaired the Michigan Recycling Coalition and recently chaired Washtenaw County Solid Waste Management Plan update process. He lives in Ann Arbor with his wife and foster son, Diego. He also has 3 grown daughters that live in the area, along with 5 grandchildren. I believe this indicates that he's invested in the community and cares about its future. I appreciate Brian for taking the time tonight to be with us, and his title, presentation is titled Bringing a Zero Waste Agenda to Scio Township. With that, take it away, Brian.
Boy, fantastic. You must have a great team of writers, Charlie. Appreciate that. Really appreciate this opportunity to speak with you tonight. Thank you for that. In addition to my solid waste credentials, I wanted to let you know that I've also been active with the Interfaith Council for Peace and Justice and the Interfaith Roundtable of Washtenaw County over the past 20 to 30 years. So if you pick up hints of religious fervor in my remarks, you will know why. I ask that you, if you would, generally hold questions till the end of my presentation. If there's some very brief clarifying question, feel free to put your hand up. I'll try to keep an eye out here. But in general, if you can let me get through the presentation and then can open it up for some conversation, questions, ideas, etc. So what am I hoping to accomplish tonight? First, I want to make you all aware of the work that Recycle Ann Arbor, RAA, has been doing in the community over the past 44 years. I want to also define for you what folks mean when they talk about zero waste. Finally, I would like to seed some zero waste ideas for you to consider and to free up your minds to dream and act boldly in bringing zero waste values and programs into Scio's consciousness, and to see Recycle Ann Arbor as a partner in these endeavors. All right, here we go. Sociologists typically talk about societies being ordered around three pillars: government, the marketplace, and civic life. RAA and other nonprofits are most accurately placed in the civic category, but RAA's work also touches the marketplace as we provide a host of services to businesses and individuals. And we also interact with governments via service contracts, grants, and educational offerings. But because we are ultimately mission-driven, not profit-driven, our tie to civic life remains our most fundamental tie to the community. Thought that was important for you to understand going in. Recycle Ann Arbor currently has 5 divisions I want to talk about briefly, so you have an idea about the scope of the work that we're doing here in Washtenaw County. First of which is curbside collection services of recyclables. We have been the historic recycling collector in the city of Ann Arbor, have been providing services to them since 1978. We were actually the first curbside recycling program in the state of Michigan, and we were the 4th program in the United States. And the organization was initially started with the vision of bringing curbside recycling to the mass population. We needed to prove ourselves to the city of Ann Arbor, and of course, the movement grew from there. We have had to go out to bid several times during that period and have always been successful in getting the contract for recycling services. We just recently won in a competitive bid a 5 to 7 year contract with the city of Ann Arbor to continue recycling services in the single family, multifamily, and small commercial sector for those next 5 to 7 years. So we have a long history of providing curbside collection in the community. We also operate the drop-off station that's located on Ellsworth Road, 2950 East Ellsworth Road, near the corner of Platt and Ellsworth Road. Recycle Ann Arbor, or its parent organization, the Ecology Center, have been operating a drop-off station in Washtenaw County for over 51 years. The drop-off station was started as a direct outgrowth of the first teach-in on the environment at the University of Michigan in 1970. One of the very first actions, concrete actions that took place after that teach-in, first of its kind, I think, in the United States, was to create a drop-off station for recyclables. And the Ecology Center or Recycle Ann Arbor have been operating in that continuously since that time. Very proud of that accomplishment. We also operate what we call the Recovery Yard, which is a construction and demolition waste transfer and recovery facility in your backyard, 7891 Jackson Road in Scio Township. We took over the old Calvert's operation, if folks remember that name and that company. We took over that operation in 2008, and we accept construction demolition waste from mom and pop operations, individuals, and larger contractors. We do our best to pull out what we can for recovery. It's kind of what we call a kick and pick operation. So we target corrugated cardboard, metals, concrete, and clean wood for recovery. Other items as we are able to do so. So we get about a 15% recovery rate on what comes in. The good news is, though, that that's 15% more than would be happening otherwise. All of this material otherwise makes its way to the landfill for disposal. So we're at least making some effort to recover what we can out of that operation. And again, that's here in Scio Township. We also recently took over operation of the City of Ann Arbor's Materials Recovery Facility, or MRF, which is where recyclables in the region are processed. We formally began operations December, so just a couple months ago now. We successfully lobbied the city and actually proposed to the city the takeover of that facility that had been mothballed for the last 5 years or so, when the previous operator was found to be operating the facility irresponsibly in an unsafe manner. It sat latent for several years. Recycling Arbor stepped forward and said, we think it's important to provide local processing capacity for recyclables collected in the region. So that facility opened in December. It is capable of processing over 30,000 tons a year of recyclables. About half of that comes from the City of Ann Arbor. So we have huge growth potential to expand to really the region for processing recyclables. One of the reasons that we're very excited about that is we're really seeing this MRF, again, as a mission-driven nonprofit, as a zero waste facility, different than most for-profit MRFs throughout the country. A couple things I think that set us apart in this new endeavor. First of all, we're using union labor that is virtually unheard of in the industry. We are paying people a living wage plus. We are United Auto Workers affiliated. We think providing people with a living wage is critical to a successful long-term operation and the dignity of people. That's been a fundamental for us from the very beginning, and I think it really is actually quite revolutionary in the industry. We also are looking for highest and best use for all the products that we recover. Our mission dictates that we do everything we possibly can to truly create a circular economy and not just find the simplest outlet for materials, but outlets that will recycle those materials, hopefully in an infinite loop. We say bottle to bottle recycling. So the idea of a bottle is that if it comes in a bottle, we want to send it to a place that's going to be turning it into a bottle once again. So that kind of is undergirds our philosophy on how we market materials. All of our markets are local, 95%. Again, we're just getting started, but 95% of the markets that we have in place are within 200 miles of our facility, which again is almost unheard of. We're not selling all over the country. We're not exporting material. We're finding local markets for the materials that we collect. And then the last piece of it is transparency. We think it's about time that the public understands what happens to their recyclables, that we're honest about where materials end up, what are the new products that are made from the materials that people are faithfully setting aside for recycling every month. And if there are problem materials, and if there are difficulty finding markets for materials, we think it's important for the public to understand those issues and to hopefully find alternatives to the materials that they're otherwise purchasing, so that we truly are creating a recycling system with integrity and transparency, that people know what we're doing with the material. One of the other things we're looking to do is to start providing tours once again for community groups, individuals, communities, so people can see firsthand what happens to their recyclables. It's not some black box mystery, that people can see for themselves what we do with materials and how the facility operates. So I really want to encourage folks to learn more about this. I think it's a great opportunity for our region. I'll speak a little bit more about that in a few minutes. We obviously also provide education, advocacy, and outreach as a nonprofit, mission-driven. That's ultimately why we're doing what we're doing. We want to make converts. We want people to understand zero waste and recycling. We want people to come on board. We want to build a movement. This is more than a business. It's a movement. So that's kind of drives everything that we do at Recycle Ann Arbor. So please understand that even though our name is Recycle Ann Arbor, our mission is bigger than that. While recycling was behind our genesis as a curbside collection program, our mission has changed as we have matured, coming to realize that American society cannot recycle its way out of its consumption and natural resources addiction. We believe that waste is or should be preventable and not inevitable. And if you don't aspire to zero waste, just how much waste, with its air, water, and land pollution impacts and economic inefficiency, how much waste are we supportive of? So the most, I wanted to then shift to the most broadly used definition for zero waste that's provided by the Zero Waste International Alliance. So they define zero waste as the conservation of all resources by means of responsible production, consumption, reuse, and recovery of products, packaging, and materials without burning and with no discharges to land, water, or air that threaten the environment or human health. That's kind of the standard definition these days for zero waste. Definition may not be perfect. We can always argue about terminology and language. I think it does a pretty good job of capsulizing the gestalt of what zero waste is about. So the vision of a zero waste society is one in which government, the marketplace, and civic society work together to achieve those goals of conserving and recovering natural resources without burning or land disposal, no negative impacts to the environment or human health. It is likely not an achievable objective in the near term, if ever, but the goal, if embraced, can change forever the way we look at whether we as government, the market, and civic society, or as individuals, can significantly alter our otherwise tragic direction. And what I find inspiring about this is that the net effect of aspiring and moving towards zero waste is not only to save our natural environment, but ultimately to save our economy, to create permanent and purposeful jobs, to restore our physical, mental, and spiritual health, and create a sense of community and meaningful contribution by all of us, recognizing that our personal decisions matter, as do our collective actions. So how can Scio become a zero waste community? Well, you're already doing one really important thing. You have created a structure and are finding common purpose together to move your community forward through this task force. I applaud that effort. And I think it's foundational to the success of your program, ultimately. Here are some other ideas for you to consider. And these are just brainstormed ideas. I hope that this will get a conversation started between us and among yourselves. Recycle Ann Arbor is in conversation right now with township officials about providing Saturday recycling services out of our Jackson Road recovery yard that would include the ability for citizens to drop off core recyclables, cardboard, scrap metal, film plastic, styrofoam, and appliances, white goods, to supplement the service that's already being provided to single-family homes through your curbside program, and also to provide a convenient option for multifamily housing within your community as well. I'm hopeful that that will be moving forward fairly quickly, and I'm very excited by the prospect. It will also help to make your public more aware of what's happening at our site, including the ability to bring construction and demolition materials there for recovery and disposal. You have a curbside recycling collection program now within the county. I would say that curbside is probably the single most public-facing recovery-based activity that a community can host. And I think as part of that, I really want to encourage you to value, to measure, and to monitor the success of that program. It's not just a gimme. I think because it is so public-facing and so important in the day-to-day decisions of your public, I hope that the township takes the responsibility to really monitor what happens, to ensure consistent service, transparent processing and marketing of the materials that you collect, a vibrant public-private partnership with your hauler in the township, maximize information sharing and participation with members of your community, share information with the community on the tons recovered. What are the end markets? What are some of the identified contamination issues? What's the participation rate? What incentives can they offer? What can they offer in the way of supplemental zero waste education to residents through the curbside program? There's so much that can be done with the curbside program. And I really want to encourage you to embrace the value of that program and to really take charge of and ensure the success of that program going forward. If the township hasn't already, I think you should be establishing, and I apologize if some of these things are already happening. I don't have full knowledge about what all you're doing. So if some of these things are already going on, I just want to affirm that those are happening. But if you haven't already, I think you should be establishing minimum recycled content purchasing requirements. I would say 50% plus recycled content for township procurement of paper products. Also identify and require the use of non-toxic cleaning supplies. Encourage the use of remanufactured or reused materials on other supplies whenever practical. Governments have tremendous purchasing power, and they need to start leveraging that to move the marketplace in this environmental direction. And sky's the limit. Governments buy a lot of goods, and I think again with creativity and a little bit of homework, you can find alternatives that are far more environmentally preferable to what you may be using right now. And public policy has a lot to do with that. Next, to support Washtenaw County efforts relating to household hazardous waste collection. You've got that service right in your backyard. It's immediately adjacent to the township hall. Your residents should be made aware of that opportunity to drop off household hazardous waste materials. I think 9 months of the year, and then there's appointments 12 months of the year for people. Again, don't know how much you're promoting that program. It is a wonderful program that keeps these products out of the landfill stream, the traditional landfill stream, and allows for the recovery of some of these materials and ensures the safe disposal of those things that can't be recovered. A great service. You have a great opportunity because it's right in your home. In addition, Washtenaw County sponsors a number of full service community cleanup events that are free to the general public, that are pretty comprehensive in terms of the materials that they accept, with a lot of recycling taking place at those events. Again, whatever Scio can do to publicize those events for your public, I think is time well spent. All you need to do is make people aware of a program that already exists. The county also has a grants program they call waste reduction sponsorships that are available to the township. If the township had programs or projects they wanted to get funded, individuals, local organizations, nonprofits, as well as for-profit companies to support waste reduction and recovery efforts in your community. I think it would be great if the township let people know about this opportunity and encouraged residents and businesses within your community to take advantage of this money that's available through Washtenaw County. And the same for township programs. There might be some of these niche programs that you want to get started. Those county funds can provide the ability to at least start moving in a particular direction. So I really encourage you to seek out those waste reduction sponsorships through Washtenaw County. Continue to support the development of the new Washtenaw Resource Recovery Management Authority, WARMA as it is called, which is a consortium, an authority of 8 communities in eastern Washtenaw County that are now, including Scio, that are working together to improve recycling education, drop-off services, and potential recycling collection and processing services. This authority has just gotten started in the last year. Like I say, Scio is one of 8 members of this. Scio can become a leader in pushing the envelope on the scope, scale, and coordination of this authority. The new authority needs leadership. It needs vision. It needs folks willing to step up and say, we can do things in a better way. We can be better when we're coordinating and working together. The nice thing about this is this authority now comprises about 250,000 people. It's about 250,000 people in this authority. this would provide tremendous leverage for Scio to have an impact far outside of its own population by being engaged and proactive and helping to push a positive zero waste agenda with that authority. Look to the state of Michigan. For the first time in years, the state of Michigan is again engaging on recycling and waste reduction and waste recovery efforts. There are a number of programs and grants through EGLE, the Department of Energy, Great Lakes and the Environment. And there's a fairly new program called Next Cycle that provides funding and consulting support for local units of government, nonprofits and for-profit entities to build a recycling and recovery infrastructure in the state of Michigan. Wonderful opportunities, again, to leverage some dollars. You don't have to go to your taxpayers to make all of this happen or find money, from existing sources. With the dollars available through Washtenaw County and through the state of Michigan, with a little bit of homework and legwork, you can start to leverage and start moving ahead with some programs that you might not otherwise be able to do. Next, support the reuse infrastructure that already exists in Scio Township. Habitat for Humanity, Share House, Kiwanis. You have more reuse opportunities in Scio Township than any other place in the county, and probably in the state of Michigan, frankly. I mean, you've basically got a reuse row along Jackson Avenue. Tremendous opportunity to engage those organizations and your community to engage with those more effectively, and the township to engage more effectively with those reuse centers. Tremendous opportunity. And so I really encourage, again, being creative about ways that you can connect and build a reuse economy out of Scio Township. Another initiative, become more aware of our own efforts, Recycle Ann Arbor's efforts in Scio Township in the future. We recently purchased the 18-acre property that includes and surrounds the construction demolition recovery yard off of Jackson Road. We're tentatively calling this a parcel that we've just recently purchased the REA Eco Park. We're currently undertaking an evaluation of opportunities to impact regional supply chains for reuse and recycling that might work out of this space. It is very early in the process, and we'll want to involve you and the township in those conversations as they move forward and as we begin to develop some concrete proposals and ideas. But all of them, regardless of where we end up heading, will be built around these ideas of circularity and zero waste. Sky's the limit. And we're not talking about Recycle Ann Arbor needing to be the owner or operator of some of these enterprises. We're looking to engage the public, private, and nonprofit sector to come up with projects that make the most sense for our region, that'll kind of push the envelope on reuse and recovery. And so this is extremely exciting. We actually have some property to now do this on as well. So we definitely, we clearly want to engage you folks as environmental advocates in the township as well, because we think this will be a great boon to Scio Township as well as the surrounding region. So deep breath, Brian. Soak in all of these possibilities. And I'm sure I'm just touching, the tip of what might be possible. I'm so pleased to see too that you have SEAS people now working now on the job as well. We're at a tremendous point of opportunity. Governments are stepping up again. The nonprofit sector is energized. Some large corporations are actually starting to get religion on this. They're starting to put some serious money into this infrastructure, which has not happened ever. So, there are obviously counterpoints to that, but there are also tremendous opportunities. And I just really want to encourage you to embrace that. So I wanted to end my presentation and open it up for your comments and questions with a quote that I think summarizes the challenge that we have before us. It's from a gentleman named Gus Spaeth, the founder of the Natural Resources Defense Council and the World Resources Institute, who said the following: I used to think that the top environmental problems were biodiversity loss, ecosystem collapse, and climate change. I thought that within 30 years of good science, we could address these problems, but I was wrong. The top environmental problems are selfishness, greed, and apathy. And to deal with those, we need a spiritual and cultural transformation. And we scientists don't know how to do that. Well, guess what? People of goodwill, civic society, and progressive public and private leaders damn well can do that. And therein lies our challenge and our hope. Thank you.
Woohoo! Thank you. That's great.
Thanks, Brian. Good stuff. So I've, oh,
yeah,
go ahead,
I just want to say what I propose is because we need to kind of keep on our schedule, is that we go ahead and do like 5 minutes of questions, and then Brian, if you'd be willing to put your email in the chat or something like that, if some follow-ups that we don't get to, I think that would be great.
Happy to do that. Yep.
Thanks for that, both factual and inspirational. So
good.
Questions?
Yes, I have one. So you're able to recover 15% of materials, construction and demolition materials. So I assume the rest of it does have to get landfilled then?
Correct.
Yeah, that is sad, but.
Yeah, and one of the things we're going to be looking at, one of the key areas that we're going to be evaluating as part of that new eco park, what kind of upgrades could we make to that C&D facility to achieve a higher recovery rate? Like I said, right now it's a kick and pick. It's a very informal sort of operation. If we were able to add some technology, some sorting lines, some conveyors, some sorting equipment, invest some capital, we might be able to achieve a much higher recovery rate and target more materials through that operation. So that will be one of the key areas that we'll be looking at as part of this eco park evaluation.
Hey, Brian, quick question.
For Brian, and folks who are members of the public, please feel free to ask questions too.
Yeah, Jeff?
Yes, so as you are drawing accepting your progress.
Hey, Jeff, I'm
Jeff,
having some trouble.
Yeah, you may need to, your microphone is garbled, and I don't know if it's the connection and turning off the video, or if you need to get closer.
How's that? Better?
I think so.
About finding targets for plastic.
Jeff, how about if you put it in the chat, because it is garbled. I don't know what's happening with the sound, but okay. Other folks, while we're doing the chat thing. Pam.
Thank you. Question, do you have a list of alternative things that would reduce waste so there's less waste to come in, such as, I was just mentioning to a friend, I've started buying shampoo in bars. It's wrapped in paper. So I'm looking for a list of things that I can bring into my own household so that I actually reduce the waste here at home better. And I don't need fancy stuff. I don't listen to commercials, and so I'm not tied into the biggest and the best. I want just something that works. That's my question.
No, yeah, a good, very good question. And there are a lot of alternatives out there. Some of them, I should note, are on Recycle Ann Arbor's website, recycleannarbor.org. We have a to Z kind of product guide, which includes in that a lot of tips and a lot of alternatives to what we might otherwise normally just default to in the way of products and packaging. So that's a good place to start. Washtenaw County has what they call a trash to treasure guide on their website as well. I think if you even just kind of Google zero waste or zero waste opportunities, I think you could get a lot of information. There are some stores now in Washtenaw County that are starting to specialize in providing either bulk, or you bring your own container, or alternative ways of packaging materials. So you sometimes have to do a little bit of digging, but I think there are some good resources that I mentioned that can at least get you started down that path. And a lot of it, one of the things that inspires me about this movement, a lot of it does come down to our decisions. I make the case in presentations to school groups that even if you're under 18, you have the right to vote. In fact, you vote all the time. We vote dozens of times every day by the choices that we make. And that includes the products that we purchase and the packaging that we use. We make those decisions every day. We have a lot of control ultimately over our own lives. And if enough of us step up, it forces those who produce those products to rethink what they're doing and why. So, we have individual action and responsibility, and there's also collective action and responsibility. And I don't want to minimize the individual either, because I think on many environmental issues, we feel paralyzed because they are so macro in their impact. And we as individuals don't necessarily have much of a role. But in this case, when it comes to zero waste related issues and the use of resources, we have a lot more control than we think. So I just want to really put that out there for you too.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, and I do want to ask Jeff's question, which had to do with, hang on, I have to make it bigger here. What is your progress in finding new recyclers for rigid plastics and latex paint?
Yeah, we've done actually pretty good on the rigid plastics. At our MRF right now, we are accepting 1, 2, and 5 plastics. And even within that, it starts getting complicated because that whole plastic labeling system was developed, I don't know, a couple decades ago, and it's not a perfect system. And there's a lot of materials that are labeled 1, 2, or 5, for example, that really aren't recyclable. And that's a problem. And there, as you well know, as a consumer in America, we have so many choices today, and so much of what we purchase it's all about the branding, it's all about the packaging, it's all about the sizzle in the way that a product is presented. And it can be so hard to know. And even those of us who have been in the business for years are still confused when we go to the grocery store or we purchase something about whether this new variation is recyclable or not. So that's part of the transparencies. We really want to be honest with people about what is recyclable, what has viable long-term markets associated with it. Sometimes recycling programs, I think to the detriment of the movement overall, have said just throw all plastics in and we'll sort it out. We'll figure out what can be recycled and what can't. Sadly, the message that ends up sending is that it's all potentially recyclable, and a large number of plastics are not in any way recyclable, and a lot of them become contaminants in the stream of recyclables that are materials that are recyclable. So it complicates our job on the back end to be able to pull out all that crap plastic that shouldn't have been in the mix in the first place. But under the guise of keeping it simple for the consumer, I think in some ways we've greenwashed recycling, and particularly the recycling of plastics. And in some ways we made it harder to successfully market plastics because so much junk comes in with it. So that's one of the things we're really going to try to be clear about in operating our new MRF and in providing information to customers that are using our facility about very specifically what's in and what's not, and to be responsive to questions that people have about this new product or material. Is this in or is this out?
Well, thank you. I'm sorry to have to move on, but please feel free, and if there's, I think as we progress, the Materials and Waste Group, you're a great resource, and hopefully we can do more to promote what's recyclable, how to recycle, and the other resources. I mean, one is stop buying it, right? Two is reuse it, and three is recycle and buy things that are recyclable and things that are made out of recycled content. So all good stuff. Thank you. That's great.
Hey, and great. And do feel free to follow up with me. I did put my email address in the chat. So if you want to dig deeper in any of these things, feel free to get in touch. If any of these ideas that I brought up resonated with you, also feel free to get in touch with me to follow up. Let's make some serious shit happen, huh? What do you say?
You got it.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you so much.
So long, folks.
Take care.
All right.
I want to open it up to public comment. If anyone, you're welcome to, put it in the chat or raise your hand and call on you. All right, great. Thank you. We can keep on going. So next, what I want to do is move to the working groups. And what I'd like representatives of the working groups to do is just a brief kind of snippet of where you are with your goals, the key ones that you're looking at. And that will give our whole group kind of an overview of where people are. And then also our C's team, kind of a benchmark of what we've been accomplishing. And then if there are a couple groups, what I'd like to do is take maybe 2 groups of 3 if we have time to kind of do a deeper dive and do a discussion among the whole group. And then whichever groups we don't get to this month, we'll get to next month. So does that sound good to folks? Okay, so since materials and waste was the focus, do you guys want to go first? And what we're really looking at is, what are your big picture goals that you're looking at recommending that you've been discussing?
Sure, thank you, Jan. For the materials and waste, our real goals are one, to, as Brian explained, really, I think you can see where he's really on the same page with us. But to evaluate our curbside program now and see if it's really performing satisfactorily. In fact, in our last meeting, I even threw the suggestion out there that maybe we'd actually be better off having a separate hauler for recycles. If for no other reason, that would be one way of ensuring that somebody that was doing both wasn't mixing the products together, because there wouldn't be an opportunity to do that in that case, at least on the hauler side anyway. So that's one of our goals there, to see if there's anything can be done to improve the program we do have. Another one is, we know that does not cover everybody in the township. There are places, fine examples where I live in Scio Farms, that has no recycling program whatsoever. So that's one of our goals. Can we find some economical way to cover areas like that? We also would like to enhance materials recovery, and you notice that culverts can be a tremendous resource there. In fact, in conversations I've had with Brian, one of the things that we were talking about is, how do we get people, how can we throw incentives out there? How do we increase usage of the facilities that we do have? In the case of culverts, right here in our own township. And if we use that facility, then we're obviously not burning as much fuel to get there, which also helps our goals. Another thing we're working on, Jeff has been spearheading this, is if we can establish some type of compost program. We're not finding that easy, but Jeff certainly has not given up on that and is looking at some other possible solutions to that. It seems like I'm forgetting something, so I'll leave it at that. But if Karen or Jeff thinks I'm missing something there, please chime in and fill that in.
Okay, and we're just going to use the recording, and then we'll choose a couple that we want to do a deep dive. I'm going to just run through the energy and buildings. We're looking at increased township and community energy efficiency, increased distributed renewable energy production, decarbonize the built environment by reducing the use of fossil fuels in operations and construction, decarbonize of the local power grid. And we really want to encourage some big picture actions in order to measure progress and set quantifiable goals, such as set a carbon neutrality goal that aligns with Washtenaw County, which is 2030 for operations and 2035 for the community. Conduct a greenhouse gas inventory, or else have the county be able to take the inventory that they have and sector it into township related greenhouse gas emissions. And then quantify the amount of renewable power needed and evaluate multiple strategies for that. Conduct a building stock analysis. In other words, what kind of buildings do we have, how much of them, and determine where the largest source of greenhouse gas emissions are in the township building by building type. Advocate for lifting the distributed energy cap and implementing community solar, that would be at the state level, and advocate for the adoption of the 2021 residential and commercial model national energy codes. We talked about going about it with, collaborating with Washtenaw County's planning and our C's group, the community engagement and education. And key enablers and partners are the Scio trustees, the planning commissions, the Scio staff, the DDA, and of course, the community at large. So that's kind of a synopsis of where the energy and buildings group is. Who would like to go next? All right, Kathy.
Unmute. Transportation and mobility. We've really only just started on the goals. We spent a lot of time on the why, but we're as far as the goals go, just generally the overall. Obviously, we'd be in with you guys on greenhouse gas goals. Doing an inventory of some kind so we can start, because transportation will be big, and trying to cut that back. And then we're also trying to look into vehicle miles traveled per capita as another metric for that. So if we can figure that out. But then generally, to fix those levels, what we want to do is, as we've already worked on a bit, electrifying Scio's fleet and all the surrounding infrastructure that goes along with that as quickly as possible. The thing that we've been working the most on recently is developing and proposing an EV infrastructure ordinance, knowing that you're going through some code changes coming up, that we wanted to work on that quickly and get it as much in place as possible to encourage the development of EV charging stations through the whole township. And then beyond that, advocating for a network of safe, attractive, well-maintained, multi-use pathways throughout the township, both for recreational and general transportation purposes. And advocate for safe, accessible, and comprehensive public transit system within Scio Township that's well connected with transit in neighboring jurisdictions. And then finally, much longer term, advocate for regional public transit options that are well connected to our own local transit. So that's pretty much where we are right now. Working from there. Chris, anything else? On transportation?
I was just gonna add the educational component.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry. Educational. Yeah, definitely.
Educating the township residents on EVs, EV charging infrastructure. What else did we talk about? Educating the public.
Using transit,
yeah.
and everything else, right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, regional transit. What regional transit already exists?
Mm-hmm.
What public transit opportunities already exist that Scio Township residents can take advantage of?
Okay. I think that's it. Next up.
Jan, I think you're muted.
Of course. We have natural ecosystems. Someone want to report from that group, and food systems? we are missing that crew tonight. All right. How about our emergency preparedness and resilience group? Andy.
There we go. Hello, everybody. We are climate resilience and emergency preparedness. Gerd and I met a couple times last month and started digging into our goals and objectives, recommendations, strategies. And spent some time summarizing what we've done so far, looking at climate resilience, picking our biggest stressors and threats, and help prioritize those. On emergency preparedness side, we're looking at ways to help mitigate any of those big threats, and when we do have issues and emergencies, how best to address them and get everybody back to normal as soon as possible.
Okay, well, great. It's, yeah, the natural ecosystems, there isn't anyone here that can report out for that group. What we'll do is Kathy will try and get their minutes from their intermittent meeting, I think, because I don't see Tim and I don't see Celeste, so must have been a bad night for them. Okay. With that, do we want to, since we started, with the, I know, any questions from our Cs team, just about that quick kind of round table?
I had a quick question. I'm wondering if we could go around and just say like when the working groups meet. That would be really helpful for us to kind of get an idea of when we might be able to participate with those.
Okay, sure.
Materials and waste is meeting on the Thursday night before this meeting, wherever that falls in the month at 7 p.m.
Okay.
Transportation and mobility. In this coming month, we're meeting on Thursday, the 17th, from noon to 1. You typically have met in the evenings, but we're going to try a daytime meeting and see how that goes.
Yeah, and energy and buildings, we don't have a date yet. Typically, we've been meeting on a Tuesday at noon. And it's kind of hard to balance, folks that have kids and people who are working. So, yeah. And then, Andy, do you have a standing meeting that you've set up, or?
No, we don't. Unfortunately, with all the schedules we're dealing with, we generally try to meet 2 weeks before this meeting and throw out dates that work for everybody. Unfortunately, it's been tough getting the whole group together.
Okay.
But we typically do meet early afternoon between 3 and 4, or 4 and 5.
Okay, and I'm not sure, anyone here, the food systems and ecos, do they alternate, or do they have a standing meeting? But what we can do is we have conveners for each of those groups, so I can give you their emails and also introduce them, since there are a few people that aren't here. And if so, you guys can either, based on availability or interest, choose a group and see it, because I know you have pretty full schedules too. So we'll see what can work. Because the goal would be for them to each join a group, or there may be depending on how it all works out. So hopefully, if there's a student who's really interested in joining your group, maybe you can modify some of your meeting times also to work with them as a member. Yeah, that'd be great. Okay. Then what I'm proposing is that we go ahead, since we had such a good kind of presentation on waste and materials, maybe we start with that one and do a little deeper dive and talk about, I think one is, you know, sort of the, is there anything missing from the scope? What are, you know, some ideas, goals, why it's important, kind of use everybody's brain power to help that group kind of round out their goals and strategies and so forth. And the purpose of, just for the Cs group too, is we're trying to lay out kind of a framework, a playbook, if you will, that then we can get some community input on. We do have Washtenaw County is going to host a very specific listening and exchange on March 15th from 7, I believe, till 8:30. And we're going to try, they did do a listening session on January 31st, and we're going to try, and there were only, I think, 23 participants there. And so we're going to try and really get more folks from Scio engaged in this particular, on this particular date, and try and talk about some of the topics that we've been discussing, as well as give time for the county to get some information too. So if you can hold, if you guys are available March 15th, the county is also using a couple of virtual engagement strategies using, if you look at their website, they have they're using Co-Urbanize, and it's a mapping kind of strategy. And then with their listening sessions, they're using Menti kind of, and as well as online surveys. So it might give you some ideas for if we mix it up between, you know, some in-person engagement and some virtual engagement, what are some ideas or techniques that you can use to engage folks. So anyway, I'll open it up for discussion on, you know, kind of the core topics around the materials and waste.
I have a question for Charlie. Charlie, what does Scio do for multifamily and commercial as far as recycling right now? Do we service them?
On the commercial side, no. On multifamily, that is also basically a no. A lot of them have dumpsters on their facility they're using. But we did identify one that we don't know if they have any coverage at all, besides Scio Farms. And again, on the commercial side, no, there's it does not cover businesses or commercial sites.
All right.
Okay, that's a huge gap.
It is.
Another question for you, Charlie.
Oh, sorry, Dana.
Oh. It appears that the Eagle Park concept is very similar to Kent County that I mentioned before. Did you have a chance to check into that at all? It would seem that this is use driven. In other words, if you can get a private end user who is able to recycle certain products, then that drives what you can recycle, essentially. So I don't know if you've looked into that at all or not. And are you familiar with, I guess Scio Township's entered into discussions on this Saturday drop-off? Are you familiar with those discussions at all? Or is anybody here familiar with them?
Yes, I am somewhat. I know that program ended when the pandemic hit because Recycle Ann Arbor couldn't do the events anymore. Then as kind of a concurrent event, the township was working on getting the present curbside program passed. So that took over, and then there was limited interest in continuing the Saturday events. But Will and Jackie, I believe, supervisor, one of the trustees did have contact, I believe, with Brian about possibly bringing back the Saturday program. But we didn't, I don't think anybody involved, and that included Jeff and myself, because they brought us into that loop and showed us the proposal. And Jeff and I were really on the same page there, that there were some prerequisites to getting the actual Saturday recycle like we had it before reestablished, and we weren't real happy with those. One of those included a situation we would have had to buy into a voucher program that would have given vouchers to anybody in Scio that was interested. But it was vouchers to go to the drop-off station on Ellsworth. That was something that Brian and I talked about. And I said, well, that was our two problems. It was a prerequisite. And the other problem was it's a long drive for people in Scio. If that wasn't done at Calvert's, maybe we'd look at that differently. So that's kind of been the communications I've had with Brian, is can we tailor what was offered there to something that is more acceptable and more useful to us. So yes, there has been some discussions, but nothing has really been solidified on that, but it is being talked about. Yeah.
Okay, who on the township board is taking the lead on that? Is there one
right.
individual? Is there one particular individual that kind of?
I don't think there is currently. I think really the lead is occurring in the materials and waste subgroup, as far as I can tell.
All right.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I'm sorry. I want to make sure we get to everyone. So Chris, I think you were next with your hand up.
I think I have a similar question. I just want to make sure I understand this correctly. So if you're a resident of Scio Township and you live in an apartment complex, we're talking about multifamily residents, you don't have a way, you don't have curbside recycling. Is that correct?
Correct. And well, you don't have it with the Scio program. And the problem is the Scio program is exclusive, so you can't bring in a different hauler.
So what I'd be curious to know is how many residents of Scio Township do not have direct access to recycling? Like what percentage is that? That might be an important metric to consider.
Mm-hmm.
I would have to I'd have to look at the numbers that Bob got from Will Hathaway, but it looks like we've got pretty good coverage on households. But as you're saying, the real gap is the apartments, the businesses, like Scio Farms Estates. So I don't think I could tell you a percentage of coverage, but I can tell you this as an example. There's approximately 3,000 people living in Scio Farms. So that'd give you a little perspective there. So in our opinion, there's too many that are not covered.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and I think to Chris's point, I think one of the metrics would be helpful to get is how many people have access to recycling. So that might be an important piece to add. Okay, Jane.
Yeah, I really support the last part of this conversation, getting some good metrics on where the gaps are. And then stating a goal. So we got something tangible to get some approval around. But what I was really thinking about, Charlie, is the end of Brian's presentation and how curbside is the big public facing, and yet we can't curbside recycle our way out of this problem. We've really got to cultivate this mindset of zero waste. And especially with the C students engaged, how do we really cultivate both the aspiration and the how-to of zero waste? I just think there's such a large public education engagement aspect to this. One of our best levers for doing that, well, one lever for doing that is the township newsletter. And I think I think we as a group ought to advocate for, let's start a sustainability corner in that newsletter. Take a whole column and just use it as a way to build a shared aspiration, support our residents and how to, because I really do think there is a desire to get in this game. And the key enabler is a little bit more about the how, right? And the column could do that for us.
Great ideas.
Kathy.
Yeah, it occurs to me on the other end of this circular economy kind of thing, we have Lowe's, Menards, all these big companies that sell kind of minor construction equipment, kind of not equipment, but materials. I'm wondering if there's any way maybe further down the road can think about somehow working with them to bring prominence to products that are less wasteful, are more easily recyclable. I think I understood reading at some point about some kind of concrete, for example, that recycles more easily than others. I don't know. I'm just wondering if there's any way down the road we can work with some of the companies that sell products to just highlight or give coupons for or something to encourage people to use things that are going to be more recyclable in the end. So just kind of a back of the mind kind of thing for future goals.
Yeah. In fact, I don't know if you'd like to comment on it, Karen, about your communications with some of the big boxes and the reuse centers that we have.
Sure. I have contacted some of the big boxes, and generally speaking, any items that they would they don't really recycle anything that they take out of their big boxes. They return it to the headquarters. So I'm not sure what kind of incentives we could offer for them to change that policy, but it's going to be a difficult endeavor.
Understood.
I know when Karen was talking to him, we were hoping that we could establish something where a big box store, say, had some appliance or piece of furniture that they just weren't moving, had been sitting there way too long. Would they be willing to donate that to one of our reuse centers, which then gets it in somebody's hand, helps the reuse center? But I think we've discovered that that might be a hard thing to do. And you're talking with, like national companies. So what can you do on the local level? So it's a concern.
Kathy, did you have something else, or were you good?
No, that's it. I just wanted to throw that idea out there.
Yeah, and I think I'd like to, with the goals, also not forget the county or our township operations. And I think they could also lead with some procurement guidelines, and those procurement guidelines could also be shared with other businesses, in Scio as models that could hopefully, inspire some other companies to do a similar thing. I'm just trying to think of I think that whole concept of the eco park and really becoming, the reuse and kind of recycling center. And there is, I know the city of Ann Arbor's, the Environmental Council is taking up a C&D task force to try and work with the university and some contractors to actually require, and the township could do this too, require a certain level of, you can achieve about 80 5% diversion in a construction project if you really, really work at it. And some of the issues are, you know, having, again, uses for like drywall, you know, because there's a lot of drywall waste, you know, just identify all those waste products and make sure you can define uses for them, because 15% is pretty low.
It's really modest. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Like to see
It
a
doesn't,
much
it doesn't
bigger
make
number.
it doesn't make the basic
Yeah.
requirement, you know?
It's better than 0, but not a number we're happy with.
Yeah.
You know, the other really,
Go ahead.
sorry. Well, just the other really quick observation I would offer is there's a lot of folks like us trying to figure some of this stuff out. Let's leverage that. Whether it's the A20 program, I think, what was it, Jan, Indianapolis? Let's definitely, if this part of our effort is, what are some basic metrics to help us know where we are? What are some goals to really focus on? Let's see and draw on what other folks are doing, because lots of folks are getting around this block. Let's leverage what we can.
Yeah. I also think another metric, you know, just the you know, speaking of metrics, is in our contract with GFL, are they required to report, and what kind of metrics are they required to report, if any? And I think that would be, you know, important to find out. And if they are reporting, what are they? Because again, that would be not only who's recycling, but how much are we recycling versus the waste. And I also, you know, one of the things that always bugs me is, okay, the garbage cart is bigger than the recycling cart. That's totally backwards, you know? And, you know, it doesn't give you the appropriate target, right?
Amen. Amen.
All right, anything else on that, any other feedback? Yeah, and I would encourage all the groups to put their goals document in the Google Drive. You know, so if others want to kind of go in and maybe make some suggestions or something, that they can do that. And that includes the C's crew too. So, you know, as we're looking at, you know, getting these kind of into a reasonable form, a succinct form, probably by that May 15th date, so we can share some of the, you know, key items that we've been talking about in that forum would be great. Okay. Did mobility and transportation want to go, or we could also do energy and buildings, I think. Where are we with time?
We will be better prepared next month.
Okay, that's fine. All right, then we'll tackle energy and buildings. And maybe what I'll do is, let's see, I'll just. Go. Okay, so I thought I'd just pull this up here so people can kind of see it. You know, kind of the basics are the efficiency, distributed renewable energy, decarbonizing, and that's really looking at electrification of both new construction and old, and then you know, decarbonizing the local power electric grid, which you know, Ann Arbor has some strategies around that don't involve DTE, but we probably don't have the political power to do that, but we can definitely piggyback on what they're doing. So thoughts from folks?
How are you planning on increasing township and community energy efficiency?
We talked about a couple of things, and that's the township we've already started with an energy audit and benchmarking, and with the township buildings themselves. Energy efficiency, we talked about, we did go through and look at all of the DTE programs. So it would be, how to connect people with some of those programs. We talked about maybe having, participating in some sort of green fair where people can really see, what they can do and so forth. We could have, participation in the 2030 district, possibly with, more buildings. There's sort of the commercial side, and then from a residential side, piggybacking on some of the City of Ann Arbor programs around that would be really good, whether they be solarized, the electrification programs with heat pumps, if we could get 50% of the people in Scio to do their own, just do a free home energy audit, that would be our energy assessment, I think DTA calls it. Why not? You have a contest to see how many people are, would sign up for something like that. I don't know, just get the word out there. There are free programs out there that people can do. The other thing, which we could piggyback off of Ann Arbor, is they're looking at a time of market energy audit requirement. And that would really help. So as houses turn over, you have to have an energy audit. It doesn't mean you have to meet performance requirements, but it certainly could. Then we did put in the master plan the concept of net zero ready, and with PUDs, we could, as a township, provide some incentives for developers to go build much better than code from an energy efficiency standard. So those are some of the ideas we're tossing around, and open to more for sure.
Thanks, Jen. Those all sound great. You did mention the Green Fair. Are you aware there's one in Ann Arbor? I think it's in June of each year. Okay, just want to make sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're thinking, we could make it more accessible with just folks, doing the summer thing. It was one of the things we kind of threw out to the C's team too. Kathy, did you have something, or is your hand just up from before?
Oh, it's actually up from before, but I was just about to try and hit it again. So under the big picture actions, the bottom one, advocate for adoption of the 2021 residential and commercial model national energy codes. Can you tell us a little more about that?
Sure. They're just going to open the residential codes. The commercial code is open, and there's a way that through public hearings, the township could actually weigh in on supporting aspects of the code. And one of the things that's kind of interesting with the commercial code is there's a provision that is an optional opt-in for, it's basically called the Xero Code, where any new building would have to come with its own renewable energy portfolio. So anything new built in Scio Township, we could require to bring with it its own renewables. It could be on-site or it could be off-site renewables. And so to have that option really provides municipalities with a lever. And so then you don't have to worry about new buildings. You just have to worry about your existing buildings and the buildings that are getting renovated and so forth, and try and promote increasing that efficiency as they come through. So residentially, that one too will be coming up, and notoriously the home builders have blocked. We probably have one of the weakest energy codes in the United States, not the weakest, but one of the weaker ones, because the national home builders just come in and really have a huge lobbying group. And so having municipalities say, they want to, they need to meet their if we had a goal to meet our climate goal, but we could use Washtenaw County in this case, we need to have higher energy thresholds for our residential. And I think it'll be really interesting to find out from a square footage and a greenhouse gas emissions standpoint, whether we have more square footage from a single family standpoint or commercial multifamily, and that'll give us a little key of, where to start in that energy efficiency reduction focus. So, Jane.
I just wanted to share really quickly. We've got a couple folks in the neighborhood that I live in who are really interested in the Ann Arbor Solarized program. So we've been talking with, I'm just getting an update really quick. Okay. So we've been talking with Julie Roth, who runs the program in Ann Arbor. And I think what we're going to do is end up pulling a Solarized session together. What that means is you just get a whole bunch of your neighbors and anybody else interested. Julie comes, does a presentation about what Solarize is, which is basically an aggregated buy. If you can get at least 10 households interested in solar, it's a 15% discount that the contractor agrees to. That plus, what is it, Jan, 26% federal rebate, you took a big chunk of the cost out. So it's early days, although I do sense some good initial momentum. So if that comes together, then you want to aim for like 50 plus people at that initial session, assume a 10% take rate or a 20% take rate, and you got your 10 households. So this would be a good group to just sort of communicate that through to get some more people possibly that might be interested, engaged in that session. So
That'd be awesome.
I'll just let you know as that progresses.
Okay, any other comments or feedback? All right, well, good. I think we're getting close to our end time. So, oh boy, I gotta get out of full screen here. I think we have any, let's say, public comment. Is anybody from the public? You're welcome to put it in chat as well. Okay. Thank you for folks that are interested in attending. Then I just wanted to if everybody on this committee could block out, save the date, March 15th from 7 to 8:30. I really hope a large number of us can participate with the county session. And everybody bring a couple neighbors so that we can get folks that maybe haven't engaged with the county or the township before to participate in that. And then minutes. Kathy, thank you for doing such a great job on our minutes. Are there any revisions or additions to those minutes? All right, seeing none, motion to approve them as submitted.
So moved.
Moved by Charlie, support by?
I'll support it, Jan.
Dana. Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, we have our minutes. Any other announcements from folks? Yeah, before people drop off, I just want to thank the C's team for the time, because I know it's really precious with everything that you're doing. And what I'll do is I'll communicate with Kyle. If we could have everyone email me with your next meeting time, and I'll also then connect them with the folks that are convening the groups, so you can connect and make sure they get on your invite list. And everybody is meeting virtually at this point, so makes it easy. Kathy, did you have something?
I just wanted to mention that our speaker next month is going to be Sarah Mills is her name, right? Sarah Mills is the chair of the Ann Arbor Planning Commission, and she's going to talk to us about Ann Arbor's experience with an electrical vehicle, an EV infrastructure ordinance. So we can learn a little bit more about their experience with it, and what they've learned through the process, and what things they might do differently, what things have worked really well. So we thought that would be helpful for us.
And she has an incredible amount of knowledge. She was one of the folks who wrote with MSU the whole kind of guidelines for zoning for solar. And she's really been engaged with the Catalyst communities and so forth. So thank you guys. She'll be a wonderful resource. Looking forward to that for sure. Okay, anyone else have announcements? As we were talking about zero waste, the city of Ann Arbor, I think it's next week, is having a contest, a zero waste week. If you go on to OSI's website in the city of Ann Arbor, they are actually having a whole week of different activities and so forth around zero waste. So that might be good. Maybe you guys can divide and conquer some of the activities that they're planning and get some ideas to bring back. Woohoo! And I will also kind of send you, I think there's a person that's, kind of coordinating it, and they'd be glad to, expand the ideas to Scio too. So, all right. Well, with that, is there a motion to adjourn?
I'll make the motion to adjourn.
Okay, we have Dana and Jane. And so all those in favor?
Aye.
All right. Okay, great meeting. And we're looking forward to more discussion and our speaker next month and more getting to know the SEAS team. So thank you all.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Wonderful to meet you.
Thank you so much.
Okay, good night.